Друзі, усім привіт, усіх вітаю. У нас нове інтерв'ю. Нам сьогодні допомагає Андрій Дмитренко. А сьогодні будемо спілкуватися з особливою людиною саме для мене. Чому? Тому що він грає з холдером, грає на гітарі і дуже круто грає на губній гармоніці. Це Gregory Hommert. Вітаю, Грегорі. Hello, Gregory. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Gregory. Nice to see you.
Nice.
You guys as well.
And first question. І я нагадую, що, друзі, що гармоніка дарує щастя. Гармоніка makes the world better. First question. Грегорі, скажіть, будь ласка, як перше ви зацікавилися губною гармонікою? Що саме привабило вас у цьому чудовому інструменті?
Gregory, yes. Please tell us how did you first get started interested in the harmonica and what attracted you to this instrument?
Well, thank you for the question. I think what got me into the instrument is more or less or somewhat unremarkable in comparison to what kept me interested and what kept me sort of continuing to explore it over time. I think like many other people, my first exposure to it was in the capacity of like as a toy, as a child, which is good because its appeal on that level means it can be appealing to lots of different people, but does somewhat or sometimes hurt the perception of it as sort of a multifaceted, flexible instrument that can be applied to a lot of genres or contexts. So that learning of those possibilities is sort of what's kept me at the table over time. I have a memory of going to a theme park as a child and getting one essentially from like a Cracker Barrel type of an area, which is just, it's a breakfast type of a restaurant that has a certain aesthetic. And I remember toying around with it for a little while at first, just enough to, with most harmonicas, right, you get the little piece of paper that gives you instructions on how to play like Oh Susanna and stuff. Blew through that, stuck it in my pocket, inevitably ended up in a toy box somewhere, and then I forgot about it for a little while. And it wasn't until music started to become something that my peers were interested in, things that I saw happening around me and wanted to participate in, that sort of renewed interest in it, because it wasn't very popular. So I'm a millennial generation. It hasn't been the biggest, sexiest thing, I think, through all the people that I've met growing up, grew up around the same time. But that did mean I had very little competition. So pulling it back out of the toy box and kind of had a leg up, so to speak, to get inside the circles of music that were happening around me. And I think that was probably one of the most freeing things, or one of the most alluring things early on, is that because it wasn't popular, it sort of gave me the ability to skip the line. Technical facility and talent really had little to do with it. And just, local kids hanging out and playing music. But because of that, that's a good reason to stay if you get to skip the line. It's like having a fast pass at a theme park, right? Nobody's going to say no. And how it evolved over time was sort of like, well, the more interested I became in it, and the more interested I became in music and the different possibilities that music had, what were ways in which I could combine the two and keep myself fed. So, but I don't think, as far as getting started with it, like, I don't think that I certainly don't have like a sword in the stone moment. It's just, hey, here's this toy. What can you do with it? Well, play, which is really what the instrument's about to begin with. So, does that answer your question for what you guys are looking for?
Ендрю, я не почув про вік, будь ласка. How old you was?
I was about 10.
So-
about 10 years old.
Yeah.
So I'm 38 now, so that was a few years ago at this point.
Окей, thank you. Next question. Наступне питання. Мені цікаво, тому що ми кажемо про гармоніку, але є ще гітара. Ви сказали, що починали з труби, з банджо та губної гармошки, а пізніше додали гітару та мандоліну. Коли з'явилася гітара і чому? Чи був у вас вчитель, професійний? Чи можете розповісти нам, як ці інструменти вплинули на вашу музику і яку роль кожен з них відіграє саме зараз? Andrew, please.
Yes. So, Gregory, you said you started with the trumpet, sure? And later the guitar and mandolin. And why? And did you have a... And can you tell how these instruments influenced your music and what role each other has for you now?
Yeah. So yeah, that's true. I did start. I was lucky enough to attend a school that had a music program, starting on in so primary school, which would be K through 6, kindergarten through 6th grade. Starting in about the 4th year, you're able to choose a band or symphonic instrument or an orchestral instrument if you'd like. And the program allowed children to be bussed in the mornings to some of the middle and high schools to have classes together. It was built into the curriculum. They bus you back to school afterwards. And that opens you up to continuing music education in the public schools once you enter, 6th through 8, 8th through 12, basically beyond elementary school levels. And I, was in the basement of my elementary school one day and somebody gave me a trumpet mouthpiece and said, here, blow into this. You'd sound pretty good. And so I decided to take it up. And that's really what began like a formal education in music. And it was nice to have that built into, a schooling experience because sort of it's easy to take advantage of, right? Because what do we pay attention to in school while it's happening? But what I liked looking back is that I was around that atmosphere intentionally because of those programs. And it really did sort of, well, it helped when you get down the line, especially now that my focus is on a sort of a modal instrument, maybe a non-chromatic instrument on the surface. Yeah. And then the other instruments, like the banjo was the first string instrument that I had, that I interacted with. And that was completely on hey, I listened to bluegrass music growing up and there was a cheap one, local music store. And so we got a hold of that and took lessons. And it is a similar experience with the mandolin and guitar. They all started showing up over time because of the music that I was interested in and listening to on my own accord and exploring. But, I don't really remember too much about my walk or my journey early on before a certain point with most of those instruments. I know I took lessons. I remember what the guy looked like, but I was very young, and I know that I didn't pay attention as well as I should have. And again, sort of circling back around to like the harmonica and its how it comes around sort of as a toy. It's very informal. There's no pressure on it. And now I'm thankful for the musical education that I got growing up and how that was able to be built into my curriculum. But at the time, I found myself disillusioned already, or just unstimulated by the concept of learning music by sitting across from someone and reading something off of a page. The harmonica doesn't really have that. I'd be interested to hear what it's like over on y'all's side of the pond with teachers and what type of instruction is available. Can you do it in person? Does it have to be through reaching out to other areas of the world? Because here, there's certainly more now than there was when I was younger, but there wasn't a lot. And I actually kind of liked that. There was no pressure again. You could sort of do what you want. It was entirely up to you. And I think that's was a good fit for me overall. Because these other instruments, and it's so crazy because on the surface, like a guitar has no limitations, right? Whatever notes you want to play, I mean, there's 5 or 6 ways to play the same note sometimes on just one guitar, even more. But and the same is true with mandolin, banjo. And so they don't have the same boundaries that this instrument does. But I think because of the structure of learning it, that may have actually in some ways slowed me down. I wouldn't say that I'm didactic, but I definitely do better with exploring concepts on my own until I hit a wall as far as like studying and things go. But yeah, but what is it like over there? I mean, do you guys have teachers? Is there a figurehead? Do you run a class? How does it work where you're at? I'm interested in this because again, like
Oh,
over
okay.
here, there's more, but I don't see too much in the way of teaching in comparison to like learning the saxophone, learning the piano, things like that. There's a teacher on. You can find one, just by a local Google search.
Okay.
So, yeah, may I answer,
Yes.
Konstantin?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So, in Ukraine, we usually have like a musical education in school, musical school, and that's like professional way, I think. But if a person wants to study something, they will usually search on Google, or for example, on like even marketplaces when people sell stuff. So we have a harmonica teacher. His name is Alexander, and he as well does harmonica lessons and puts it up on these like social pages when people sell stuff. So like in the musical instrument section, for example, and this is how it works. And other people do it with guitar, with piano, with vocals. It depends on what person wants to learn. So that's mainly how it works.
So a lot of the internet is still very involved, even at
Yeah.
the local level. Yeah. And that's the thing now too, because most of the resources to learn whatever you want on any instrument, and you can just pull up Google or YouTube or something and find somebody that has the answer out there. As I've gotten more into like playing like rack and stuff, the roles of each one has changed. You gotta, since you're dealing with sort of like the patting your head and rubbing your belly type of a phenomenon, you kind of have to make a little bit more intentional decisions about how you're going to approach or what you're going to do with each component. And I know for me, like kind of went back to the drawing board and spent, I would argue that I'm still doing this, just concerted time on playing rhythm, just chords, and having really those right hand techniques locked down. Because that's, especially if you're playing solo, that's one of the most important things, is to be able to maintain a consistent pulse, have something that's fluid, that's steady, that's consistent, and it's strong, to give, whatever you place over the top of that. And that's the way that the harmonica, that's what the harmonica adds in a lot of contexts. Anyways, you usually see it as sort of a texturalized instrument, right? It's usually not the thing that's providing the rhythm. And so, I didn't stick with the banjo. I would imagine because I'm such a horrible fingerstyle player to begin with, that would be really difficult to sort of use all the facilities of my fingers, plus the left hand with the chord shapes, as well as, playing lines with your face. But really, it's mostly guitar and harmonica nowadays, and it's kind of hard to find a lot of instructional material for that. So I think I ended up, probably was a good fit for me to choose something where I'm okay, not necessarily having to sit across the table from somebody, because the problems that I do come in or encounter, there's still things that you would encounter whether or not you're playing two instruments or not. And so it's like the answers they're out there. So you guys have it at school, huh? You said it was professional, so is it a different schooling that you go through to do the music, or is it kind of like what I had, where it was, public school, elementary school, and they just had a program there for it?
Yeah, it's like a public school.
Okay.
Or it could be a private school as well, so it depends.
До речі, Андрію, в мене ж таке запитання є в контексті цієї розмови. Чи планує Грегорі зробити простий курс губної гармоніки з холдером? Ми би були щасливі, це правда.
Yes, Konstantin says this. We have a question related to it about a harmonica course. So if you are willing to, with a rack, while playing with guitar and a harmonica on rack, so we would be so glad if you did.
So happy, by Gregory Hommert.
Yes.
Well, if I can, I don't know. I've thought about, because when you think about, how so many people today interact, right? And a lot of it's through social media and through posting out there. And I've gone through a lot of shifts and changes with this. When I first started, I spent a little bit of time, once upon a time, focused on making internet videos, right? And it was around the same time I was really trying to focus in and buckle down on rack playing specifically. I was having a lot of fun with it. This was during a time that we were all, I think, isolated during COVID, right? And so, I think everybody experienced at least a little bit of loneliness. And for me, aside from, the family unit, one of the ways of reaching out was to utilize the internet, like a lot of people. And I noticed that, if you're going to make a mark or if you're going to do something, you should try and do it right. You should have a clear content platform. And I enjoyed it, but, I am a little bit of a perfectionist. I don't know if that's maybe like obvious or how obvious that is, but I like things to be clean, which means that, there was such a learning curve with getting into like making internet videos to look like other people that I was watching that I really admired and, trying to skip all the steps to learn what they're doing, how they're doing, just, behind the camera to make it all flow together. That thing kind of got in the way of it. And as time has gone on, I've, the point's always been just to play, right? So movement away from doing the YouTube videos, but it's not outside the realm. Obviously if I was going to make content, educational would be great, but then you have to ask yourself the question of like, who are you to tell people what to do or how to do it? And that's a question I haven't really answered. Lots of people put up tutorials and things on the internet, but just because you can doesn't always necessarily mean that you should. So I've wrestled around with it. If you were to see something like that, what would you want to learn about with the rec? What Constantine, I've seen videos of you playing it. He's told me that you were a beginner. What are things that you struggle with? That could help me too, like.
No,
Actually, yes.
many people wants Ukraine, but play like Gregory Hommert, but not Bob Dylan. Many people plays like Bob Dylan.
Okay.
It's interesting, like this and this. Like Howard Levy plays in piano, one hand, and play harmonica.
Yeah, man with two brains, actually.
Yes,
Yeah.
two brains.
Maybe that's a concept.
Very, very, very. I think it's, but you pies us thinking about it.
What surprised me about that conglomeration, right, is exactly how much it emphasizes the importance of rhythm, right? It was a humbling experience to go from feeling very confident, feeling very comfortable on an instrument, to immediately being restricted and having like the most trouble in the world playing simple children's songs again. Like your brain just, what's there, but your brain just doesn't want to do it and your body's busy doing something else. It's tiring. I would feel how I imagine like, my dog feels after like obedience training where you're like really working their mind, right? Keeping them engaged. And they're more tired after that than, going to the park and running 3 miles. It's just like really, really, really intense work for your brain. And I just remember, especially at first, just getting so tired trying to work out simple things. I love that though, because like it's fun. But it completely makes it, I had to completely tear down and sort of start over again. I do like how that's influenced me as a freehand player and even like just a regular rhythm guitar player for other people and things like that. Because you kind of like, since you're fulfilling both roles, you kind of get more than just a bird's eye view into the experience. But I think that if we were to do educational content, what I don't see enough and what I see is very common. I like that you, like, I think it's funny that you commented on how a lot of guitar player or a lot of rack players sound like Bob Dylan. And I think you're thinking more of just like, this will sound more like Billy Joel and like that type of a thing,
That's
or the embouchures and focused, And I don't want to actually discredit that, though, because, you know, to speak to what the Bob Dylan thing does, or what the Bob Dylan thing is, you know, obviously, I don't think that that man's entire persona was wrapped around the harmonica as an instrument. I think he had a lot more to bring to the table and to offer. And so that component in, you know, especially early on when you hear him using it more, I think we as harmonica players, because we want it to be cleaner, we want it to sound more like other instruments sound, that we can be quick to judge and dismiss, but that may not be in our best interest, especially with the rack, because, you know, for what he was doing at the time, you could obviously tell on those recordings when he starts playing, there's a timbral change in the song. The dynamic builds in some way, the dynamic rises in some way. And so I don't think that his focus, and I'm guessing here, but I don't think that his focus was crafting some, you know, masterful or melodic interlude or interjection into the song in between, you know, the things that he was saying. I do think that it was meant to add dynamic and variety to his performance. And if somebody's happy doing that, like, sometimes it makes me jealous. I will see a video on the internet of, you know, someone playing Piano Man, and usually it's like, you know, a pretty young woman, right? And it'll have millions of views and likes and just comment after comment cheering them on. This is great. You're so great. This is just singing their praises. This is exactly what I'm the. And, you know, and if you see that and you're like, you really like the harmonica, right? You see that and you're like a little jealous, in a respectful way. You're, you know, maybe it's not jealousy. Maybe it's like just a blatant misunderstanding of how society works. But I don't think that there's really anything wrong with that. And I actually think that there's something to what that style of playing is doing. I just wish that rack players would maybe flip it around and use second position a little bit more, because then the chords sound a little bit juicier. You know, if that's what you're going to do, you know, maybe a few small tweaks can still get you there and have more of like, you know, a larger body of sound, right? I did forget where we started though. What was the question?
Так, я пропоную перевести трохи в інше русло. Пропоную таку
Okay.
штуку. Ми колись спілкувалися. У мене таке коротке запитання таке про трубу. Чи
Short question about the trumpet.
да, допомогла з диханням гра на трубі, коли Грегорі почав грати на гармоніці, і запропонуй, будь ласка, нарешті прийшов час зіграти. Time to play.
Okay, so Konstantin asked if the trumpet has helped you to build up your breathing on the harmonica as well, breathing technique.
You know, I actually don't know.
Oh.
With the breathing technique, though, if you think about it, though, one way in which the harmonica is unique is that it's bidirectional. You're breathing in and out. And do you guys think that you breathe in more when you play, or do you breathe out? Which one do you think sort of is
More in.
more?
More in.
Right?
In.
Right, because we're doing the... You know, you're doing the blues thing, right? Whatever. And that second position thing, you're breathing in. So to ask if the trumpet, I think, helped my breathe, I'm not exactly sure that it's applicable. One good thing, though, I think one thing that I've been discovering recently, I've actually been dying to talk about this with other harmonica players. I had a mind-blowing experience earlier this week, and this may play into it. So when you play with the trumpet, you know, you play brass instruments, there's a mouthpiece there, with all sort of wind instruments. And so, you know, you make the buzz sound goes in, produces a tone. You use your embouchure to control the pitch, for which partial you're using in the brass instruments. And sort of that one of the things about progressing with brass instruments is learning to control the velocity of your airstream. And so basically how fast is it moving through your lips. And I think that is definitely helpful and applicable. I think about the transition for me from stock harmonicas to harmonicas that I've worked with or changed or modified or customized, whatever label you'd like to apply to it. where a more controlled and refined breath pressure is required, not necessarily to get the notes that you're going for by customizing the thing in the first place, if that's what you're into, but to get the notes that were there from the beginning, right? You lower the action on a reed profile, and if you blow really hard on it, it'll choke, right? And so in making the transition to something that's at least, depending on how far down you set your action, right? You have to blow softer. You have to be more controlled about that. And I think wind instruments, that's a parallel everywhere. And in singing as well. I'm just learning about that today. I took a vocal lesson for the first time earlier this week. And
Congratulations.
thank you. It's something that I'm interested in, but have always been scared of. And I essentially, it was mind-blowing the way that, like, very, very quickly into it, the vocal teacher, you're working with where's your palate placed, what's the shape of your mouth, where's the air coming from, and all these things. And I know that as a harmonica player, think about it, I'm always closing off, like I'm deactivating my palate. You know that little flap in the back of your throat that makes your voice sound kind of nasally? Usually when I'm playing with, no matter what embouchure, that is, like, that's closed off. It's disengaged so that I can control what's going on in my breath chamber. Now, obviously, we open it up when we need to take a breath, right? If I need air to go in, I'll open that up. But for the most part, and this has become sort of subconscious. I just do it. But it's through that mouth cavity that you're really, like, you want to control the air, which you use to control the tone, which you use to control the timbre, volume, all these different things. But you're closing off your palate, right? And so I was applying that to singing, thinking it was just like, oh, that high nasally thing, like, that's what you're going to go for. That's how you get the higher notes. That's how you control and do all these things. You listen to great singers. Nope. Turns out for like 25 years, I've just been holding it wrong, right? You essentially, it's like, you're supposed to hold it this way. And that's crazy to me because it was so counterintuitive to what I thought, like, especially with, like, bends. That's all done with tongue motions, like tongue movements, maybe minor changes of the jaw, but basically the placement of my tongue inside my mouth to control where the airstream is going, and essentially the velocity of the airstream in terms of when the bending is taking place or the overblowing is taking place. But the palate is essentially raised because that back flap is turned off. If we wanted to get into educational stuff, I think this might apply to some of the questions further down the line. But learning how to sing with the vocal, they want you to actually really open up. And I think that's probably also true with wind instruments. So to your original question, I'm not exactly sure that helped the banjo. As I'm learning now and doing some more exploration and putting words to experiences, right? But, I probably need a few more vocal lessons before I get to the other side, I would say, definitely, for sure. Check back in with me then, right? So...
Окей, thank you. Ендрю, запропонуй, будь ласка, Грегорі щось заграти, щоб перевірити це.
Okay.
Please.
So,
by the way, if I do speak too quickly, I know there's a language barrier, which, I appreciate you guys doing all of the effort beforehand. If I speak too quickly or if I use a phrase, right, that you don't understand, please stop me. I've...
Okay.
Okay, it's okay.
Yeah, you speak quickly, we can tell, but I understand. Not everyone understands, but... Yeah, but actually what you said about the like voice exercise, so I think when I play and I use my tongue on bands, it sounds not as good when I use my throat, when I use
Really?
Yeah, but I don't know why. So, and each, like, my friend that plays good on the harmonica and loud, they say that when you use, like, more over your throat, the intonation will be better. And
Because tongue blocking and throat.
We use the throat when tongue blocking, and yeah.
Would you mind providing an example? Do you have a harp handy?
Yeah. So, let's take, I don't know, what, C harmonica, right?
C,
so can you hear
C's
me?
great. I've got a bag here. We can.
Harmonica Jason reaches. Yeah. Harmonica Jason reaches.
Yeah, this is mine.
This
This is my. So can you hear me?
yes.
Oh, okay. So I pull up my. So on intonation bands, lip pursing. So with my tongue just. That's like tongue, and not. And this is with the throat. Like something like that. But I need to work on my bands. I know it, but I think I don't know. I'm really working on to get a better tone, and I'm trying to figure out what's like really the key here.
I think you touched on something good. Like, yeah, actually, having the throat cavity opened up right as it goes down. And when I'm talking about closing off my palate, I mean up here into your nasal cavity, right? I mean, you're true with the bends though too. Even with tongue blocking, you are still technically you're using your tongue muscle. It's just a different part of it, right? When we are typically because we have so much more facility with purse playing of the tongue not really touching anything, and so we're using the tip of the tongue really to sort of direct the airstream. This can, I mean, the immediate advantages here are dexterity, right? Agility. With tongue blocking, obviously, because of you're making more surface contact with the instrument, that'll be restricted, and because the tip of the tongue is engaged, you're gonna have to use different parts of the tongue to. That's still my tongue. It's just not the tip of the tongue. It's sort of back there, closer to the jaw, and things like that. I mean, I wonder if there's anybody out there that doesn't have a tongue that plays the harmonica. How would that work out? That's just so valuable. But you're right. Like when we're tongue blocking, like I am like this is open, especially for the longer tones, right? It is a lot more open, but that flap, right? I think it's called the palate. It's sort of like if I could put my finger inside and point to it, it'd be better. But sort of like up here, it's like that thing that goes from making your voice sound normal to sounding kind of stuffy, right? For me, that's always the part, and I think the throat here is more of a different beast. Although I'm finding that opening this up here with singing is naturally opening this up more, and it's like, dang it, why didn't I learn that so long ago? Now I have to relearn all these songs, which is no big deal. That's just a fun Saturday afternoon.
Can you play something for us?
Yes.
Yeah. So
like
something like
with rock. Yes.
With the rack.
With the rack?
Yeah.
With your style of playing, so.
Тому що я хочу, що хто не знає, хто такий Грегорі Hommert, щоб почули.
So people can see.
Посилання
What's your style?
на TikTok Грегорі.
Well, what would you guys like to hear?
Okay. So
so I've been doing a lot of things where I'm singing. I'm not exactly sure I want to do that on the internet just yet. I'm just being honest about it. But a lot of the things that I've been working on recently is, just really is sort of getting into that sort of like that bluegrass realm, like more of the folk thing. Give me a second here. Oh, I know one here. Let's go over to E. We'll do one that's like ooh, I have to tune up a little bit. Sorry, shouldn't have done that. I should have done this a little bit beforehand, but so I'm guessing what kinds of styles are actually like are you guys into? Like, so if we're talking like, are you guys mostly like the
Okay, so yeah. Got my mojo.
yeah, like that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah, I'm into different stuff, like into jazz, into like folk music as well as into bluegrass, everything. I'm like a how to say it, mellow man.
Yeah.
So
all the way around. I do find it that like most of the time, like, you know, you kind of get pigeonholed into like
into blues.
You kind of get pigeonholed into like doing that type of a thing when you're playing the harmonica, which is why I like having like that sort of like, you know, like, because for me growing up is I have not warmed up, so give me a second to warm up. We can edit all this out in post. That kind of stuff, you know. Takes a minute. You got to get warmed up, though. I'm coming in a little bit cold, so.
You sound great. Don't worry.
Very cool. Друзі, будь ласка, підпишіться на TikTok Gregory. І в мене запитання. Gregory має друга, да, якого звати Ісак Корбет. Корбет, yes?
You have a friend, Isaac Corbett.
Yes. І він має
Yes.
так багато підписників, але в Грегорі 776. Чому так? Чому? Це...
Why do you have so less subscribers on TikTok? So it's like very...
Because it's cool. It's so cool. Why?
Oh. Well, I think especially with that algorithm, consistency is the key. And if you look at like, let's take Isaac, who is a great example and a very, very beautiful human being. You know, he posts multiple times a day, every day. He found his niche. He found a platform. You know, his style of playing, juxtaposed. It was ready-made for the internet if you think about it. You know, having an app where there's essentially an endless amount of live backing tracks happening anywhere, and all you need to do is just press record and you can stitch things together. I'm glad that that was available to him for, you know, to help showcase his talents. I think that was a really great platform and medium to showcase his talents, but he also stayed very, it's, you know, it's not just about the talent. I mean, he's very talented, but he's also stayed very consistent with it. If you go look, God, I don't even know how many videos he has out. There have been times where I've noticed he'll post multiple times a day, usually all within a related vein. Like you can see the continuity from video to video and what he's doing. And I think that's important to build an audience, to keep an audience. And I mean, you know, he's had some years now to also kind of refine that. So, but with me, it's, you know, I'm balancing lots of different responsibilities. I'm going to use an excuse here, which is never good enough. But for me, the focus has never really been about making the internet videos. I tried that for a little while. And it's too obsessive, takes away from the process of just sort of sitting down and having fun. And, you know, I would rather be out building community, having conversations, building relationships, playing. It's kind of like that John Lee Hooker line, like it's in him and it's got to come out, boogie woogie or boogie chillin'. And so really, I think for me, like, I'm not surprised I don't have that many followers. I'm not very consistent. I work hard on what I do release, but it just doesn't come out with the same amount of, there's just not as much quantity there. And it could take time for things to sort of take off. I know in the golden days, right? All it took was one video just to go like super viral, and then you'd be in the hit. I don't know if it still works that way. I think the paradigm of social media platforms is more than likely shifting. But yeah, let's talk about Isaac. Isaac is great. Or do you guys actually follow? Do you know Isaac?
Very expressive.
Yes.
And cool play. And play in a rocket.
Yeah.
Да, я переб'ю. Я сподіваюся, що після цього інтерв'ю декілька українських підписників з'явиться. Це по-перше. А по-друге, в мене дуже цікавий цей тримач. В мене є питання, як його обирати, і запитай, будь ласка, там магніт якийсь, тобто Грегорі просто поставив, змінює гармоніку, поставив гармоніку, там магніт якийсь, да?
Gregory, on your harmonica holder, you have some type of a magnet, so you changed it and it sticked out to it very like easily. So you have a magnet, or?
So Constantine, you might relate to this. Like when you put the harp in the holder, you kind of like you go to play it, you have to.
Yes.
Because yep, because and I would say this is true for pretty much every commercially available model. There's going to be some form of either a bar. I know you've seen some models that have come out that are using magnets as well, but those are placed underneath, and so there's always a little bit of surface area of the harmonica that's going to be sort of unavailable to you. And that just makes it uncomfortable. When you're playing freehand, especially if you're tongue blocking, how much of that sucker is in your mouth? I mean, really think about it, By using the magnets at the back.
Круто, це дуже цікаво.
Yeah, so this is actually, and this is used using a 3D printer, just some 3D printer and some magnets and glue and things like that. And you just kind of get in there. And for me, I noticed, I prefer a tin sandwich style of harmonica for the rack just because, simplicity's sake. And as well, that typically means that the back covers, which are aluminum or nickel plated, right? They'll be flush with the back of the comb. Now, I can use recessed comb harmonicas and put those in there with what I've got going on because there's a dip between the magnets, but that's just for me. Really having that back there, having it mounted to the back. First off, you can see how quickly I'm changing harps, right? Like that's one nice thing of what we got it in there. There, yeah. So the magnets are going to open that up, but then also because it's like the magic of the magnet, I can. To kind of give some examples of you have a lot of the facility. If I think I'm and when we talked about earlier of having that whole the chords, even if you're not going to do a lot of stuff those chords there, if you don't have to play on the just little draw chords. those chords in there can I wish people would do, use the second position for the chords, because it's so much easier. We already know that. Why don't they do that on the rack?
Like
but
partial chords as well. Not
the
only
double
just
stops. Yeah.
Cool. Додамо питання про амбушури, Андрій. Ти коли робив бенд, я тобі скажу так, коли ти спробуєш зробити це з холдером, відразу щось трапиться. Тобто в тебе є гармоніка, да, ти граєш там бенд, да, а коли ти береш холдер, чіпляєш і пробуєш зіграти те саме, але в тебе має рук.
Okay, so
Інше, да, тому запитай, будь
it's
ласка.
different when you don't have hands available.
Про амбушур.
Yeah.
So
But,
the question.
I'm sorry, I did not mean to interrupt.
Oh, it's okay. You can.
What is the question is? I think I understood, but I want to hear the English one.
Yes. Про амбушур,
about
да.
the embouchure. Yeah. So it's about the embouchure.
Yeah, so I think what you're getting at is like, when we don't have the rack holder and you have your hands and your hands are able to move freely, right? They can be the one that pushes the instrument into your mouth. If you're doing the head trill, they can be the one to move back and forth, or your body can work together with all those types of things. And so, like, which is great. That's a great observation, Konstantin, because I don't think I think we take for granted exactly how much our hands are doing. When we're playing the harp, when we're playing freehand and things like that. I mean, yes, like let's talk about like tone manipulation with the wah-wahs. That's an obvious one. But just the mechanics of moving the instrument around, as it's making contact with your face, your hands are pivotal. And, that can become very quickly automatic. And so when you have it taken away, like even that's just like, that's what I was talking about before, like learning children's songs and things. You have to get used to that, moving your neck instead. And I remember even still, like it is hard. You'll notice I'll do it all the time. If I'm not really paying attention to what I'm doing here, I'm looking there, or anything like that, I go to play. Which hole am I starting on, right? And somehow with the hand, because we can never see the holes, right? You can't just, oh yeah, I can see it. That never happens. So why is that muscle memory just so much more automatic when it's freehand playing versus when it's just like, sort of free hanging playing, right? I will say though that like, I'm hanging out on that 3 draw right now to show you some types of things. When you get used to, so like our hands, they push and pull, they give and take, they work together with our face, right? And again, we take a lot of that for granted. This is not going to do that. I mean, there's a little bit, just because I haven't worked out very much there, it's getting a little bit softer, I'm sure if I did some more push-ups that would get better, but it's certainly much more fixed. Right? So once you kind of like learn or gauge, get comfortable with that, you can actually kind of use it as almost like an anchor point to be able to get. I'm using my mouth and I like to kind of like push and pull and tug at the fact that it's anchored right there to get some of those articulations, some of those inflections, right? And that takes on a whole different shape to the playing. It's kind of like new too, especially if you're doing like, like especially with those overbends, if you're going to do all that, it's actually really nice to have the anchor point just kind of like there and solid. Because it's like pressing a button, activating the overblow. Kind of feels like just pressing a little click button. You can hear that snap, you know?
Yeah, it moves.
You know? And so having it kind of like there and solid is really helpful. But it does take a lot of switching. It does take a lot of getting used to before that, you know. I would say first, I just had to get used to being like, okay, I'm playing a G chord. I want to play I had to get used first to like just being able to move around, and then obviously since I could bend before I picked up the rack, that wasn't as much of a learning curve. But what I noticed is that the lack of stability, the lack of an anchor point, and this is just, I've come to accept it, it's going to happen every time I pick up the instrument. There's going to be some flub. You have to get your anchor, especially if I'm changing harmonicas. Because I'm thinking right now I've got a C harmonica. And so I'm thinking like, you know, G, A minor, B minor, see, you know, like you gotta think of where you're going, you know, like I'm thinking in terms of somewhere between holes and numbers of like maybe a key that I'm playing in, or really a lot of it is in terms of notes that correlate to the grouping of notes that I'm playing on the guitar. So there's a lot of transposition that's involved, which is why typically I only use about 3 or 4 keys, unless I use a capo and then I just try to reset mentally. Think about it like I'm using another harmonica that I do know in the capo, and just like, but that can be a lot still because your mind still sees, you know, the dots on the guitar and goes, oh yeah, that's this note, and then it gets all flubby in the mind. But the embouchure really has sort of developed over time. One of the biggest things was, if you are a rack player, try and find something that opens up the surface area again. Because having that closed off, I mean, don't you just feel pinched playing it when that clamp is just in your way? You know?
Interesting. Окей. Слухай, Андрю, в
Окей.
мене було питання про чи заспіває Грегорі, але я був неуважний, я побачив на Тіктоці вчора, що Грегорі співає. І поки він з гітарою і з гармонікою, може запитає, чи є в нього щось зіграти та заспівати. Він дуже класно співає.
So let me explain what my friend said. He said that we had a question about we will hear you sing or not. And recently, Konstantin saw your TikTok video where you actually play and sing. And if you please have an opportunity, can you sing for us something that's on your heart, that you have it will be very cool.
Something original, maybe.
Something original? No, I don't do original music at this time.
Something
so.
you can.
Something you want there, yes.
I was gonna play it earlier. I might as well, you know, I can give it a shot. Play you a couple verses. It's not really like a very harmonica, like heavy or straightforward tune, but. To give me a second, fellas. Looks like I might have a bit of a sticky reed. It would be a good idea to take care of that before we can. So we're going through a weather shift over here, transitioning from summer to fall. It's beautiful, but that does mean that sometimes things tighten up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will have same stuff very soon, I think, as well in Ukraine.
So I have a really hard time, like, playing things like the original artist. Again, that's going through sort of finding a ground, finding a voice with vocals and things like that. And then also to just, I find that when I'm learning songs on the rack, that I'm doing more arranging than I am really like learning the songs, you know, like. So there's a couple things I could do. You can hold her and show her how you cry. Explain to her your weakness so she understands. Roll over and die. You can brave decisions, crumble up inside. Spend your time asking everyone else's permission. Run away and hide. Basket has a hole. You can lie between her legs and go looking for. Tell her you're searching for a soul. You can wait for ages. Watch your compost turn to coal. Time is contagious. Everybody is getting gold. You can sit on chimneys, some fire up your ass. No need to know what you're doing or waiting for. If anyone should tell them I've been licking coconut skins. We've been hanging out. Tell them God just dropped by to forgive our sins. Relieve us our doubt. La 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 la.
Bravo.
I'm a little bit nervous about playing on the internet, to be honest. If
Thank
we're
you very
able
much.
to,
It's cool. why you don't sing early? It's cool.
oh well, thank you.
This was amazing.
Could try another thing here. No, that's upside down. Nope. Let's take a break here for a second, guys. I'm messing up. Let's stop for a second. Do you guys edit this, or is it all live that goes into it?
It's all straightforward.
It's all straightforward? Oh.
Yep.
We might want to, if you guys can, if you're able to like take something out, that would be helpful. But I'm a little bit nervous and on the spot, but what I'm thinking of is I've been hanging out of town, or in that low-down rain, watching Good Time Charlie Friend as they're driving me insane. Up on shady Charlotte Street, like the green lights look red. I wish I was back home on the farm, Lord, in my feather bed. Found myself a pick a friend, read yesterday's news, folded up page 21 and stuck it in my shoes. Gave me a nickel to the poor, good turn for the day. I folded up my old billfold and I put it far away. I got myself a rocking chair, see if I could lose. Thin dime, hard time, hell on Church Street blues. Guitar strings, old black diamond brand. And I string up my modern box and going to join some band. I guess I just stay right here, they can sing a while. Try to earn me a little change, give them folks a smile. I got myself a rocking chair, see if I could lose these thin dime, hard time, hell on Church Street blues. These thin dime, hard time, hell on Church Street blues.
Cool.
Thank you. Yep. Really, where it comes into, if I'm going to play something, is more
Та даже намагатися.
a little bit instrumental. So you can see there's a definite disconnect with that and the vocal stuff. So the vocal stuff is coming along, but that's a little bit more, you know. Does that hit at what you guys were looking for?
You're singing. Yes, of course. Your singing is like way up. I don't know if you notice it, but
Ендрю, запитай, як Грегорі отримує верблоу так довго на холдері.
Yeah, we have
Що для
actually
цього
a
треба
very cool
робити?
question.
Що для
Yeah.
цього треба робити?
Yeah, about a question about overblow technique. How do you manage to hold it for so long? So like keeping it for so long.
Like with anything, well, it's the
Still.
same as holding like a regular double reed bend. You just have to find the mouth shape, tongue placement in the mouth shape, and you'll find, like, think about it. C harmonica, right?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that's an A harmonica. Let me grab a C harmonica. Or D harmonica, sorry. Right? You can hold all those things. I can do. Why not hold an overblow? But you notice how you can manipulate the pitch with the double reed bends? You can do that too. I go. That's going from a 4 overblow to the equivalent of a 6 blow. So, or you can take the one thing I really like doing, especially with like blues, right? You know, like you know, the you know, using the fact that you can manipulate the pitch to be able to pull off different types of, like, emulating a guitar, right?
So you're playing like 5 overblow, but getting the 6 root note, or what?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you just kind of use that because you can think of it like this. You know, so you can use those overbends. You're not just. It's not just to fill in the, you know, the black keys, I guess.
And very proud, so wow.
Чистенько, ти чуєш, як чистенько? Ой, клас. Слухай, деяким людям просто руками складно робити оверблоу, так отримувати. А Грегорі робить це з холдером. Це кул. Ой. В мене є ще питання.
So some people... Yeah.
Да, ну це для наших глядачів, а те, що робить Gregory, це просто неймовірно. У мене питання про пораду про музикантів. Можливо, зовсім декілька слів, хто вплинув на Gregory, ну, звісно, як на Харпера. А ну, от моє запитання для початківців мається на увазі. Кого порадив би Gregory послухати з Харперів, які, ну, допомогли б отак грати, як грає Gregory?
Okay, so a question, very interesting one, about what musicians influenced your playing and what harmonica players influence your like playing with the rack. Maybe, I don't know, Jimmy Reed, Jimmy Lee, Paula Scher, Nick Clark, someone like this.
Да.
So tell us about.
Любов до гармоніки тільки зростала, прослуховуючи це. Да.
So, this is a big question. So you're talking about what are my influences as more of a general question, and then also as a second part are like the harmonica players that influence me with what, you know, I'm focused on now.
Yes.
Yes.
So as far as music, I listen to a lot of, well, mean, like I can name for you my top 5 most listened to albums, and I'm sure you understand this. They're not the same genre. Each one is so very like wildly, vastly different. So there's a lot of like, it's very eclectic, and that's not as a cop out. I mean, I'll go from listening to Country Gazette and the Dillards one day to listening to I'm really into this guy like Jesse Gold right now, is sort of more of an R&B artist, neo soul influenced, like the next, to listening to Study in Brown, the day out, 5 minutes later. So it is a lot. Study in Brown, which by the way is a jazz record with Clifford Brown and Max Roach Quintet, as a trumpet player and a drummer. And so it's kind of all over the place. And so that's kind of like, the influences. It's so difficult to talk about influences because I can really only talk about like certain characteristics about being exposed to musician that stood out to me, as well as my emotional connection to them. It's funny how that works, because like I'm essentially providing commentary on like a whole person, right? So many dimensions and things that led to the output that I was exposed to, that I'm not exposed to, right? That speaks to that. So as far as like influences all around, I would say, listen to Bela Fleck, listen to Mark O'Connor, Edgar Meyer, I like Rob Ickes, Jerry Douglas, I like Russ Barenberg, Brian Sutton, I like David Greer, or Dave Grisman, for the mandolin side. Like it's kind of like a lot of new acoustic music is what I will listen to of my own accord. And that's where a lot of that, just like that kind of stuff will come in, and that's, just kind of taking the rhythm guitar there. But as far as the harmonica is concerned, I remember, especially growing up, having 2 primary influences. And when I say influence, I just mean people whose music I was digesting to the point of where I felt like it had no more nutrients by the time I was done, right? And I was very much drawn to players like Jason Ricci, which I think you guys mentioned that name earlier, and as well as John Popper. And on the surface, this is where it gets kind of muddy, because right, like these are real guys out there, and so like kind of saying that out loud, they're real people. The dexterity obviously stood out to me because of the way I think my brain works at first, and I really enjoyed that. Like the way that but that is such, like, it's just such a vague term. Like, what did you like about it? Well, they're very agile. That's just such a vague term that doesn't speak on the musical decisions that they're making, the rhythmic decisions that they're so melodic and rhythmic decisions that they're making. Doesn't speak on the influences that they're pulling from. But they were good places to start, because there was number one. There was no way when I was first exposed to them that I was actually going to absorb all the information that they're sharing, right? Think about it. And so but being exposed to that, especially from an early age, this is why I'm excited for what the internet can do for musicians, right? Expose them to many new things early on, so that sound just becomes ingrained into their vocabulary. Even if they can't play it, they've at least heard it. They're familiar with that sound. And so being exposed to that earlier on, I'd say for like 2000, the year 2000 was when I found Blues Traveler, and then not too far after was Jason. And at that time, all I had was, we did have a desktop at the house. It was a Gateway computer, which is similar to Dell's, and it had Windows, one of the Windows versions on it, which had Windows Media Player. And growing up, that was like the only thing that was a tool that had a slower, like you could slow things down. And so, which was necessary. And so I would do that with these types of records. And that does not mean that I'm not aware of, haven't been exposed to, don't fully enjoy, admire, respect, people like Little Walter, people like, Rice Miller, people like Howlin' Wolf, people like Paul Butterfield, people like Jerry Portnoy, James Cotton, Norton Buffalo, Sandy Weltman, Howard Levy, Carlos Del Junco, the list goes, like Dennis Grunling, George Harmonica Smith is awesome. Like the name, we could sit here and literally just all day name. I would say that I stuck around the community long enough to pick up the techniques that I wanted to learn, and I was primarily attracted to a lot, at least as a young man, the more dexterous players. And sort of kind of understanding what they were saying. I was really just interested in like, what are the mechanics of what you're doing? And so that's kind of what got me interested. Now, because my musical interest, like what I was listening to on my own outside of the harmonica, was in genres that you're not really hearing it as much. I mean, yes, you hear Buddy Green and Charlie McCoy over country music, and they do play bluegrass. It's not like, that sort of new acoustic music. I don't hear a lot of harmonica players with a lot of the artists that I listen to. Let me just put it that way. And I do know that, like with Bela Fleck, that Howard is touring with them again. He was part of the original band. And I was very conscious of what, especially for those first three records, about that role there. I love the contributions, not only like holding it down as a piano player. I'm going to guess probably he contributed to the writing as well, just knowing just how his brain works. So with all the piano things, but then also the harmonica playing, you have the longer tones on some of the, actually like contributing to the chord motion of the song by using the sustain of the instrument, which is something that the other instruments of that band didn't really have. So it was a nice counter. And then also, all the work that he did with that. But I would say that those two players were definitely the big first ones. Really, just from a technique perspective, I'm thankful to have had them because, you get a workout right away by trying to tackle some of the ideas that they have. And I'm not saying that I've got them perfect. I'm just saying that was definitely what was grabbing my attention. What about you guys? I mean, like, where does that sit? Is the community like very much trad, or as D Carp would say, do you guys like those speed players?
Okay. It's different mainly, but here in Ukraine, in our country, usually blues, usually trad, but a lot of new players, they pick up harmonica just to play Ukrainian folk songs. Okay. And it's been like a very cool pocket instrument, so people like play like a folk songs. So like for example, it was made for German folk songs, so here as well it suits well. But me personally, I was a student of Jason Ritchie, so of course I'm a fan of his music, but first my harmonica inspiration was actually Buddy Green. And yes,
Buddy Green is very talented. I don't think I think he's pretty much a stock guy too. I don't know if he uses the overbending or things like that. But what he's been able to do, if that's the case, is just absolutely fantastic. So if you like that, do you also have you played country tuned harmonicas? They have that raised.
No, not really. It was a raised.
I saw some players in France call it like a Lydian tuned harmonica, which is fun because actually that makes a lot of sense. But because it gives you that that major 7, right? Kind of built in instead of having to do the build for it. And I'm pretty sure a lot of country players will use country tuned harmonicas. Imagine that, right? So what's it like to study with Jason? What do you do there? Like, does he have a plan, or do you have a plan? Does anybody have a plan?
No, we just go and ask him, help us with this, or can you help with this musical aspect, or with tone, with how do you learn like arpeggios? So it depends on what you ask.
Okay, that makes sense. He'd be wild to take that'd be a lot of information to get in a short amount of time, I would think. With because he's got so much to share.
A few words, Gregory. My love, it's a Sonitarian and Brownie McGee. And when
Okay.
I first time Jason Rocket number 9, it's my love, yes. But I saw interview with how name greatest harmonica player ever. It
Oh.
was yes Gregory Hommert because of guitar and harmonica.
Guitar?
And yes. For me, it's a cool. It's a not compliment. You're playing super and cool. And one question, тому що ми дуже довго вже розмовляємо, Ендрю, щоб це було іще й корисним від Грегорі. Запитай, будь ласка, якусь вправу для початківців, що б Грегорі порадив для початківців, саме мається на увазі, ну, ось те, що він робить з оверблоу, це дуже круто, я давно такого не чув. Але для початківців, може, що стосується, ну, як починати, щось саме від Грегорі, якась така секретна вправа.
So, very interesting actually question for beginners,
Yeah.
because beginners usually don't know what to start with or what exercises to train on the harmonica. So, what basic exercises are the most useful for beginners to play the harmonica, or maybe you give your like secret exercises
By
that you would like to share.
So we can
Yeah,
talk
for
about
beginners.
this, I think, in a couple of different ways, right? So, like, beginners, like, do you mean beginning rap player, you know, beginning rack or beginning like harmonica, beginning guitar, right? When you're bringing the two together, it would be wise to spend time apart with each one. So with beginners, especially when you get around to playing rack, the biggest thing is like single notes. I purse play. It's easier for me to kind of easier for me to get single notes. Now you can see that it does, it's not always 100% foolproof, you know. If I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing, you know, and so that's always constantly going to be a struggle. And so the way you mitigate that is obviously you want to have some comfortability playing single notes. There are lots of YouTube resources for that. I don't think we necessarily need to go into it, but if your focus is going to be the rack, then perhaps wearing one while you're practicing those types of things, just again, so you can get used to that anchor point that I talked about. You know, stuff like that. And then if you're going to once you start bringing the two together.
So that's how you started. First on the rack separately and harmonica, then added guitar. Yes?
I will do that. Like I will, because I also, I will wear the rack candidly if the situation arises, in order just so that I can just play it. I can get used to that feeling. Like it's in your face. Right? This is one of the reasons why singing is probably so hard, because I mean, look, it's just right here, you know. Wanting to get in the way. You have to kind of look out over here to do a lot of that. But yeah, just getting used to this as a facility, because think about it as just like just think about that, like, Andre, like, how hard is the head? Like, it's hard to do the head shake, because like you have to, like, there's someone to... Because you're doing your neck, there's so much movement. You have to get used to all that kind of stuff. So really just kind of getting used to that facility. Make sure that, like, you know, and then with a guitar, it's really just... that's that having it could be anything, right? You know, like a lot of people don't do that. Just really trying to like remember that like this is going to be your anchor point for all this kind of stuff. So really anything that you can do to make sure that you're just really focusing in on that. And like, so for me, exercises every day, right? I will warm up and so on and so forth. Like scales are always good.
Oh, cool.
Scales, yes.
Scales.
Yeah.
Guitar and harmonica.
Yeah, together. Yeah.
Together.
Which, by the way, like with rack playing, the pentatonic scale is your best friend, right? If you want to go from 0 to 60, you know, some the and you can even do them the so those pentatonic scale licks, like you know, yeah. You know, like that kind of things. And you can even like, so there's that's in unison. You can very easily start to harmonize with yourself from there, just from pentatonic scale exercises. I know I'm not pointed at the guitar here. We'll see. I'll put that down there. Yeah, it's on the. You know, you could do those. You know, like all that kind of stuff. You can, it's accessible, and that's the nice thing is now you have a way of like playing lead and harmony. But most of the time, it's really. So it's really just kind of like getting down, and it doesn't have to be like that, you know, like that's one time signature. But what if I were to do that in like, you know, like if I was playing before, like that's also 4/4. But like, what if I were to do that? What if I were to do that like instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, like in 6? change the time signature, you have to adapt to that, right? Just making sure that this is always do whatever it's doing. Or just
Keep it steady.
keeping it steady.
Don't see accords on guitar.
Yep. Oh, let's see if we can move this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, let's get the guitar neck in there. Yeah. Harmonica podcast becomes about a guitar, That's what I do like about this is like, yeah, I come on here to, talk to you guys about the harmonica. We're going to end up talking about the guitar. So, right? Like a lot of the bluegrass stuff. But, and I learned with jazz, right? Or jazz or anything kind of extending out there, right? You might want to be doing like, you can play G major 7 like a lot of different ways. These big ways of grabbing it. Really though, all you need are 3 notes per chord. Right? Yeah, I mean, you could take that as being like 1, 3, 5, but the basic formula that I use for traversing around the neck on everything, and this has really helped with making this feel more free, is that every chord has a root, right? So if a G, it has a third. So something that tells me where it is, what is my tonic, so where am I? Third, what is the quality of what I'm playing? That's like, major or minor. And then it also has some sort of a seventh or a leading tone. So where am I at? Where am I? What quality? Where am I going? And that's G major 7, right? So A minor 7, res 1, 3, 7, E minor 7, 1, 3, 7, all those types of things, major 7s back all the way around. And so I learned those shapes. And even diminished chords, all that kind of stuff. You learn all those different shapes, and it's all built around just those anchor points of where am I? What quality is it? Where am I going? Because you could play the
So
so that's kind of like where it comes from. And voice leading starts to naturally build into that. Another thing, too, is playing a lot of extensions on your chords is going to limit what you can do melodically here, right? The more input this is giving, the less input that this is going, that the other instrument, right, I'll move it, is going to be able to put in there. And so that's kind of like, it's always important to keep that balance in there. But you were talking about exercises. I know you guys have a question, but an exercise, like, I can speak with the rack. Early on starting, the most important thing is always going to be the right hand. And I would say pick a song. We can do always want that, right? And if you can't do it at that pace, how are you going to... Never going to be able to get up there. And you'll find that doing that too, will help your harmonica playing, because you'll notice that I'm doing those fast runs, but I'm holding basically 16th note, like this. my right hand is actually helping propel me through a lot of those runs because it's giving me is almost implied by the motion in the right hand, right? And so, but you have to build up to that.
That's cool. I think if you just play and talk, it could be cool for TikTok lessons. It's cool.
You think so? Oh, well, I think the problem is like it's organization. I've noticed that the way my brain works, trying to bring it together to be organized is, I think, probably one of the biggest. I mean, when you guys,
You're
what I
trying
love,
to make it perfect, right?
there you go. Coherent, I think, is maybe another word for it. But think about it. Look at the preparation that you guys put into just us meeting today. Never had an experience where someone was kind enough to forward I'm sorry, you can't see my face. The subject matter beforehand, right? That was wonderful. Thank you guys so much for doing that. So I at least had an idea of what to ask you, of what you guys were looking for. Obviously you've never met face to face. Constantine, I am still really interested in your rec journey. Like, is this something that's for you, or is it more of just I'm going to dabble when I don't have anybody else to make music with?
Я так розумію, Ендрю, що Грегорі просить щось заграти, да?
Ні, він питає, чи оця гармоніка на тримачі і гітара, це щось типу для тебе,
Я
чи...
понял.
Окей.
I'm ashamed. Maybe 2 notes.
Yeah, I mean, listen to how many times I've just messed up, not like really knowing what to do, being put on. Like, it happens, man.
I have a magnet. Щось таке українське. Sorry.
You're good.
Just guitar. I'm ashamed, but I'll try and training.
No, that was wonderful. So you play a lot with your fingers, and the guitar playing is great too. Did you play guitar before you played harmonica?
Yes.
Yes.
I play
Something
guitar
very interesting.
for harmonica, but then I love harmonica. And do you use mediator? Because I play finger, just a finger.
Just
Yeah.
fingers.
I have always been really, I've always struggled with that. I do hybrid pick, so I will use my I will use for pinches and things like that,
Because
Picking.
because I think just
Hybrid.
only fingers, but I see media.
Yeah, I'll use these 2 fingers for picking as well as I'm going through, like that kind of, but I've never really been good with the finger style playing, and I would think that would make it more difficult. Like that to me, the guys that are doing a rack with their fingers and killing it are killing it, because that's so hard. That's so much more coordination than just basically like a lot of what I'm doing is like up and down.
Yes.
A lot of up. I mean, like you can really just sort of whittle it down to like it's a lot of up and down. So it's not the same facility at all, and I'm very amazed and impressed by that. Also scared by it a little bit too. I find it to be very intimidating. right, in a friendly way. So, did you find that your understanding of the guitar has kind of helped you with navigating like the layout of the harmonica? Like, you know, kind of under the C chord, right? And kind of getting into it, even from a freehand perspective, like having some, having another instrument or an influence from another instrument that you may have been formally trained in, I'm not sure, or not. Did you find that that's helped you with connecting with the harmonica, made things easier to kind of conceptually understand?
Ендрю?
Окей. Грегорі питає, чи тобі якби допомогло те, що ти перед цим гітару навчився, зрозуміти лейаут гармоніки, тобто розташування нот, акордів, і потім вже якби з іншого інструменту перенести ноти на інший і якось так вивчити цей інструмент.
Так, да. Як коротко, гітара дуже мені допомогла, тому що, скажімо, це найкращий інструмент, який дає розуміння тобі в нотах, тому що один лад це півтони, да? Один лад це півтони. І це, мабуть, краще, ніж піаніно. І таким чином, я коли починав грати ноти, да, тобто я грав і мені оця гама, да, то це те саме, що і на гітарі було для мене на початку. Да. Тобто, да.
So, it helped the same way to understand the harmonica in certain ways how Konstantin first started learning the guitar, the notes on it. So, we can think he sings guitar on harmonica in some ways when they play together. Yeah?
Guitar for better than piano for understanding polotone,
the notes.
Notes.
Yeah.
The half steps, yes. on the neck.
Yes, and ironically though, it just seems like I thought that having like a chromatically capable instrument would make it so much easier, and like, to kind of access some of those musical concepts, internalize them. I do find that like I am spending more time on the I'll actually like translate, like I find that it goes back and forth all the time on which one is being the dominant influence. Like that's all harmonica, and so you learn that, like I'm learning guitar licks because the harmonica, especially when you do like on the, that's a guitar lick that I learned on harmonica first, and then this is, oh, that's how that works, like that kind of stuff is like, it's kind of B.B. King inspired. And so that's guitar stuff, but I learned it on harmonica, and then now I'm translating it back onto guitar from the harmonica, so it's a weird thing. But I did find that having the guitar in there, even if it's just like to learn what the chords are, like take an E minor chord. Like if I got a C harmonica and people are playing an E minor, right? People get all, people are like, well, what do I play over minor chords? And like this constant struggle for harmonica players to kind of play outside the boxes that they're used to. And having the guitar front and center, like, you were able to be like, okay, well, what notes really are here? What notes can you add? Right? Because you can play like, if I have an E minor chord, I'll just take a straight E minor chord, right? I can play a natural minor. You can play harmonic minor. You can also go into playing modes. What about Dorian? Yeah, where it's just so now you have the, because that, and that gets into like the. So you get into like, because that's using those A chords. You can find ways of blending, and so, which is nuts because it helps make sense of where you're going, how to melodically put things together. It makes music sort of connect in different ways, but then it also opens up a lot of different possibilities, because like I could take an E minor chord, just playing G over it, right? But I can also take them to playing D, and you know, you can find different ways of like, you know what the notes are, you can kind of stop and you know, tune check yourself as you go along. So I think it's definitely harder to ascend towards, but I think rack playing, especially if you're saying that there is sort of a burgeoning community in Ukraine, encouragement on people to actually sort of, I don't know, pick up that axe, call to arms, right?
Зрозумів, bass line of boogie for harmonica.
Yeah.
Playing harmonica, it's easy. Ендрю, ми вже 2 години, треба закінчувати. Будь ласочка, запитай про челендж, можливо, про вуса, якщо Грегорі вдалося подивитися. Ну і наприкінці ми запитаємо ще одне запитання. Будь ласочка. Челендж та за вусла.
Okay, so have you heard our recent Ukrainian like harmonicats a band called the Wusla? We've sent you the link.
I have not managed to pull it up yet, but
we'll send you later.
Later, yeah.
But we can just tell that one of our harmonica players decided to create a band with his brothers, but they don't know how to play the harmonica. He told them how to, and they play different harmonicas to create music like harmonicats, basically back then, and with Ukrainian traditional music, and not only. So it's a big project, and this guy, he asks everyone from our harmonica community to join him next song. So it's like a very cool project. So if you will have time, you can check it out.
I would love to.
And yeah, so that's a very recent project we have. And another question in our like harmonica community, in our messenger chat where we all gather together, we have a week's challenge, yeah. So, and during this challenge, people play different stuff. So recently, the last challenge was about playing on the upside down harmonica just for fun. But now it's yeah. And people did it actually, and so even one person did it like standing on his arms upside down, playing just normal harp, and said this is a challenge. So we have different people, and this time we play like blues scale challenge, and we want you to ask, could you give us a suggestion for the next week's challenge? So
new idea.
Oh, so like playing upside down, playing the blues scale. So these are 2 examples, eh?
We had a gypsy jazz challenge. We had a higher octave challenge. We have a train songs challenge. We had like boogie challenge. So we had like 10 challenges already. Reggae challenge we had also. So
a challenge here. What would be a challenge? Oh my gosh. What's everybody's skill level?
Beginner. Like
beginner?
They don't. Not everyone even knows how to bend well.
Two level, beginner and others.
Yeah, I would say then, to learn something in a different time signature. You know, when we're beginners, we don't really encounter that a lot. A lot of the blues, you know, a lot of songs that I listened to and I learned, like when I was learning blues, like I was in 4/4 for years, man. And I had to get out of my comfort zone and in fact kind of go to different genres to get different time signatures. And so something in 3/4, something in 6/8, they could learn a song, a melody, in its time signature other than 4/4. So when you're counting along with it for the beginners, if it won't sound like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then like kind of like keeping with the pulse will sound like more of a like odd metered 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. I think that would be wonderful if you guys have not kind of experimented, because coming at it from a rhythmic standpoint, especially if you're beginners, I know how easy it is to get just kind of like bogged down with but we have to learn how to all the bends and all the tongue trills and things like that. Like learn the techniques, right? Learn the techniques. And that's great. You should definitely do that. But that's all supposed to be preliminary to playing music. So wouldn't it be nice to do, and something you can do to enrich yourself with music is learn different things. And so a different time signature, I think, is flexible enough. Maybe 3/4, like learn a song in 3/4, right? Because I'm going to guess that 4/4 is a prevailing time signature. And that might actually sit well with a lot of the folk music as well, when they start getting into that, learning those different pulses. So that would be my challenge. Is just learn something outside your box. You don't need to get too technical or too crazy. Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
thank you very much.
Is it realistic to think that if we did that, like a whole bunch of people would go out and buy racks and like next to a fleet of rack players in Ukraine by next week?
I wish we had a lot of rack players, so we could make a rack challenge. So, or actually challenge like playing 2 instruments at the same time. So harmonica and something else would be also cool.
It
so
is.
Might do it later.
There's guys out there that do it with just with the drums too. I think that's super cool. You ever seen somebody do that where they have like
or with tambourine, something like that. Harmonica together works well.
Yeah. So.
Okay. І наприкінці, Gregory, maybe you would like to say something to Ukrainian now.
People. Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, first off, I wanted to thank you guys for this opportunity to meet with you. Not knowing who you are and getting together, it was a very pleasant experience. So thank you to both of you, and as well as for like the platform that you're creating. Really, what I would like to say is actually more of, it's going to sound weird because it's more of a question. What I know of Ukraine and what I know of the situation and what I know of the quality of life there is limited by the news outlets that I have access to. And so in that way, completely devoid of much of the essence of the human experience of being and living life where you are and how you are right now. But I do know that the climate is, you guys have, this is going to sound like not good enough, but you guys are dealing with some very real things. But knowing that and sort of knowing about the disjointed, between, I guess, me having insight into your day-to-day life, what are some things that you would want, someone from another country, maybe specifically somebody from the U.S., right? But doesn't have to be. But what are things that you wish that other people knew about Ukraine? And it could be, take that as you will. It's sort of open-ended on purpose, right? Because I know that you have a lot of hardships that you're dealing with on a day-to-day, but I'm not exactly sure how they affect you, like even for you guys. But maybe that's not something you want to focus on, and maybe there's another part of your country, something that still makes your heart swell with joy and pride, and that's what you really wish people would know. But from the perspective of you as 2 Ukrainian people, what do you wish? What would you wish that I knew about Ukraine, or just from that standpoint?
We need peace.
Konstantin, I agree, we really need peace because this war took a lot of lives. And as well, I personally want to share music of our people back then. So we have different composers, and Jason said it in this interview we had with him on this channel about Stravinsky, about actually lots of people I watched, and actually George Gershwin's Summertime, it was took from it was taken from Ukrainian folk song that is translated, or here comes the dream. So like a dream at night. So it's like a lullaby song, Ukrainian national. So George Gershwin saw, and it was back in century ago. So, and Ukraine was not like a nation because Soviet Union became at that time created, and people that left the country because it was a war back then. Here they went to US, and one of our choirs was singing at Carnegie Hall, and George Gershwin heard this song and a couple of other songs, Carol of the Bells, which is also from Ukraine, which is also like took from Ukrainian the Ukrainian folk song called Shedrik. So a lot of actually songs they were took from Ukrainian folk songs in America. So Summertime by George Gershwin was taken from Ukrainian folk song. At that night he heard as well Shedrik, and then Carol of the Bells came later. So things like that.
So there's a lot of recognizable melodies that actually have Ukrainian origin.
Yeah.
Wow.
Леонтович був крут. Це так.
So and the composer was Volodymyr Leontovich. His name is of this Shedrik song, which is later became a Carol of the Bells. We will share with you these songs later, of course.
Good.
Okay, Gregory. So thank you very much for your time, for you. And Андрій, перекажи, будь ласка, щоб це звучало доречно, що багато класних гармоністів, харперів, багато класних гітаристів. Але щоб це поєднати, один такий, the best one, це Gregory Hommert. Перекажи, будь ласка, ще раз мою подяку за час, за інтерв'ю. Будемо сподіватися, що, можливо, колись ми також ще зустрінемося і поспілкуємося. Будь ласка.
Gregory, there are many people who play well harmonica and separately guitar, but there is only one who plays it perfectly together, and that's you, Gregory. And Konstantin says that we are so glad to meet you, and we are so thankful to you for giving this interview, and we will be so glad to talk to you again.
Of course, man. I appreciate y'all's time as well. I had a wonderful time. Thank you very much for reaching out. I was happy to do it. And yeah, keep in touch. I'm looking forward to the music you guys said you wanted to share. I'll definitely give that a listen. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.